Man, I love this card, and we got a few more pretty cool ones in this video. But up first is Overlord Saurfang. I never know how people say it, but one of my all-time favorite Warcraft characters, and this card just looks stupid epic. The way he matches like perfectly in the card frame for warriors, it's just it's amazing. It's fantastic. So 7 mana 5/4 here for Saurfang. And his by the way, his flavor text does say sour candies. So that's sort of an implication Saurfang is the way to go. But he's a 5/4, and Battlecry resurrect 2 friendly frenzy minions and deal 1 damage to all other minions. So pretty cool here. A nice little 7 mana board builder that's gonna activate your frenzy minions for you, and resurrect effects in warriors pretty cool. So, you got a couple solid frenzy minions die, maybe some 4 drops, 5 drops, that sort of thing. And Saurfang brings them back, and because of this AoE, he's also going to instantly trigger their frenzy effect. So they had some awesome frenzy effect as well to trigger. We saw like the Barrens blacksmith, with a +2/+2, for instance. If that comes back with Saurfang, you're going to buff all 3 of the minions on board thanks to this frenzy effect, and who knows what other effect is going to be possible here. And then, of course, just sometimes an AoE attached to a body like this, even a small one, a whirlwind effect like this, might still just be a good play and help you swing the board a little bit. Some risk of proccing your opponent's frenzy stuff if they leave it on board, but nonetheless, I think this is going to be pretty powerful option, and any sort of rush minions in the frenzy pool could go a long way here as well if they're able to attack immediately after perhaps their frenzy has been procced. So pretty cool. Now, there are clearly some downsides. Like we saw, I think a pretty good 1-drop frenzy minion for warrior, and resurrecting a 1-drop with Saurfang's probably not as exciting. The envoy, the one we're talking about, would be buffed potentially pretty nicely with this play, because there might be a lot of damaged characters. Particularly at this stage of the game with some hero damage in there too. But it's still, only going to have a couple health on board. You're probably aiming for, more mid-game to late-game minions to really make this card pack a punch, which does mean there could be some deck restriction issues where if you're running a more high-tempo game plan and a lot of early-game frenzy minions, maybe Saurfang doesn't feel quite as good and doesn't feel worth it, and it could actually discourage you from running this card. But I have a feeling that the payoff here is nice enough that there will be plenty of decks that can kind of isolate their frenzy minions into things that are generally in the mid game and will generally feel pretty good off Saurfang. And for all we know, we might get some really big frenzy cards as well to make this a really rewarding play even later in the game, if not on curve on turn 7. But the perfect ideal here is probably like a 5-drop frenzy, a 6-drop frenzy into Saurfang, and having a really nice turn 7 on curve, which I think will happen probably sometimes, maybe even fairly often. So all in all, a few aspects of this card that make a lot of sense. I will say with a card like this one, it's going to be pretty restricted to specifically like this expansion, or maybe, future mini sets seem to have cards from like or keywords from the entire year. So if Saurfang doesn't take off now, there's not going to be more frenzy in future expansions until, again, maybe like a mini set, of course, for Barrens, or maybe even down the road. We saw Darkmoon Races pull keywords and mechanics from across multiple expansions. So there is some risk that he just doesn't get better over time, and he might peak in this expansion, and his peak may not be particularly high. That would make me sad, because this is one of my favorite Warcraft characters, an incredibly well-known one as well, particularly in recent lore, has been really important. So I hope he works, and I think he has a lot of opportunity to, but his window is going to be a pretty small one. So next up here is a new mercenary legendary, Scabbs Cutterbutter. It's an amazing name. And a lot of you get triggered by the term mercenaries. I guess you still aren't caught up on the lore, so let's fix that. That's okay. That's an easy fix. So mercenaries are the characters the storyline is going to be based on throughout the course of this year. So there are 10 mercenary legendaries, kind of like we had prime legendaries before. These are going to be mercenary legendaries. So Cutterbutter is one of them, Rokara, Zyrella were the ones most recently revealed, etc. And I think we're going to see them probably throughout the course of the year. I don't know if they'll have legendary cards every set, but the storyline is going to be built around them. And I'm sure they'll be popping back in. So it's good to know these mercenary characters. That's what a mercenary is. There's no distinction as far as like the card itself or the impact or mechanic in game. It's more of a storyline or lore thing moving forward. So anyway, Scabbs Cutterbutter is a 4-mana 3/3 with combo. The next 2 cards you play this turn cost 3 less. And that means you're netting a 6-mana discount here with Scabbs Cutterbutter for only a 4-mana card, which is, of course, a net gain of 2 mana, allowing you to cheese in a nice 3/3 along the way whenever you make some kind of crazy play. And clearly, this could be a very powerful mid-game tempo option. You backstab to set up the combo here for Scabbs. You play Scabbs, and you get to play 2 3-drops potentially for free alongside it right on 4 mana, allowing you to build a really nice swing turn in the mid-game that could probably stabilize you and help you just push enough to win. There are also probably some like shenanigan potentials here for Scabbs where you discount certain things to enable interactions or combos or OTKs or something that wouldn't otherwise be possible without these discounts. And particularly if you do something like Shadow Step Scabbs and you reduce his initial cost, that allows you to net more mana discount in a given turn. So bouncing this guy or playing around with him could set up possibilities that otherwise just wouldn't exist without these discounts. So in both cases, I think this is a really intriguing card. Maybe there's some deck built around this discount aspect, and maybe he's just a really good tempo play where you're getting a lot of cheap stuff all at once. And I think Rogue loves doing that, right? Rogue loves these kind of sneaky plays and crazy tempo swings. So Scabbs feels like he fits that game plan rather nicely, and I think this is a card we're sure to see in some Rogue decks in the future. All right, so next up here is the Swine, Tusk, Shank, a 3-mana 2/2 rogue weapon that reads, after you play a poison, gain +1 durability. So we already saw paralytic poison introduced. It's going to be +1 attack, and your hero is immune while attacking. And we've got like deadly poison and nitro boost poison, which I guess are fulfilling the poison aspect here. I mean, maybe there's going to be more poisons than that as well, but there's already a nice little set of poisons to work with, which means, you know, those cards are all essentially kind of getting a bonus from the Swine, Tusk, Shank, because not only are you getting their effects and their damage output, but now you're also going to gain some durability along the way, allowing you to stack up what looks like it'd be a pretty crazy weapon. Now, you know, if this is like an entire mechanic and we're going to get more poison and it's going to be like a whole thing, it makes me a little nervous just because weapon removal still exists. You know, this weapon you're investing in and getting all this durability out of, you're kind of saying like, look, I'm going to make this my game plan for a little bit. I'm running cards to support this. I'm planning this durability to last for like multiple turns, maybe the entire course of the game. I'm building up this one big weapon. And when that's susceptible to a card like Ooze, you know, a simple 2-mana neutral card, that makes me nervous. I don't want my whole deck to be built around it. You know, like Self-Sharpening Sword, when that gets oozed, it's already pretty painful, but it was just like one card. You know, maybe you have a nitro boost on there or whatever, some support on it, but you're not like running a ton of stuff to make your Self-Sharpening Sword good. And I think you are running a ton of stuff to make Swine, Tusk, Shank good, because I don't think it's good on its own by default. There's just not enough output here. So being so susceptible to tech makes me nervous. And, you know, I don't want to diss a card just because tech answers exist. But when it's an entire deck potentially, or at least, you know, a big package or a chunk of a deck like this seems to suggest, that makes me nervous that it's so easily answered. You know, if one card gets answered by a tech card, no big deal. If like 8 of your deck's cards that are all trying to support this card get answered by an ooze, that becomes an issue. Now, obviously, the poisons are fine on your hero power, and you can have 2 Swine, Tusk, Shanks. There are clearly some backups and stuff, but that still like delays your game plan, slows it down. Your opponent can still time the ooze well. It makes me nervous, right? It seems like it's going to really limit the ability of this archetype to ever soar, because as soon as it becomes really, really good, the whole meta just shuts it down, basically. That makes me really nervous. So, but regardless, I really like the idea of like building up this weapon. That's a great flavor and feel from World of Warcraft. That's how rogues play. You always got to pick your poison and find the right one. Pick your poison. So I'm hoping this works. I think it looks really cool. I like this playstyle a lot for Rogue, but I have a feeling it's gonna be hard to make it like a really good tier 1 sort of card. All right, next up here is Conviction, the ranked spell for Paladin. It's a 1 mana holy spell. Give a random friendly minion +3 attack. And then as it ranks up, sorry, I got these a little out of order here. You give 2 random friendly minions +3 attack. And then finally, you give 3 random friendly minions +3 attack. And we were told if you only have 1 minion, this isn't going to stack +9. You'd have to have 3 distinct minions at the end there to make this one worth it. Or not worth it, but make it work at full function. And pretty crazy damage output potential here. I mean, God, a lot of people were freaking out like, oh my God, Odd Paladin in Wild would be crazy. All the 1/1s just getting buffed by a billion with Conviction. That is scary. I don't think this is quite as scary in standard format, though. I think it's a little bit less terrifying. Because here's the deal, right? When you're looking for like really, really efficient damage output, you're probably playing a pretty aggressive deck, a deck that's going all in really, really early in the game and trying to push a ton of heat. And those decks don't usually play towards the late game as well, right? By the time you get to turn 10, if you're still sticking around as an aggro deck, you're probably very much on the back foot. Your opponent's kind of easily dealing with your stuff. You're not sticking minions on board. And what that means is if you're not sticking minions on board, it's going to be really hard for you to get actual attacks through once you've buffed stuff with Conviction, because your minions are just kind of sitting there buffed and getting cleaned up by your opponent. So you really have to be on the forefront, be the initiator, and then cast a Conviction while you have minions ready to attack. If you want this to be a face damage output card. And 1 mana +3 attack, by the way, is not terrible, right? We've seen like Cold Blood before was really good as a 1 mana +4 attack. And we even have like Blessing of Might, of course, in Paladin is probably a more apt example, and it was a decent card as well. So I'm not saying this is a bad card by any means. I just think it's crazy busted like it might be in other scenarios or wild format or whatever people are reacting to. So solid anyway at its base level, because you have any minion on board ready to attack, +3 attacks, awesome in an aggro deck. If you're at 5 mana and in the same spot, +6 attack is really good. That's kind of an amazing output for 1 mana. That's incredibly efficient. But I'm saying basically at the final spot for the 10 mana upgrade, it's probably not going to be played very often. Very rarely is that going to be worth it. Maybe randomly generated in a control deck just to find some follow-up damage, that sort of thing. But still, I think a really solid card because at a base level, it's fine. Sometimes you're going to be happy to get 3 damage pushed through in an aggro deck. And at 5 mana, it's really, really crazy. It's basically a 1 mana Leroy. So you're still being able to play other things while creating a ton of pressure follow-up on top of that. It's also worth noting that there are rush minions in the game. And with rush minions, I mean, theoretically, if you just want to take better trades, Conviction could allow you to do that. There's also cards like Crab Rider with this. Like, just play a Crab Rider on turn 3 with Conviction, and it's absolutely nuts right there. You don't need anything else because you've got yourself a 4/4 rush Wind Fury minion super early in the game. So kind of a great card. I feel like I downplayed it early because I was trying to downplay the totally craziness, but still pretty good and a lot of stuff you can do here with Conviction. So I think this is one that we'll probably find a home. Not every deck's going to care about this necessarily, right? Because they may not need the damage output, but there will be a handful that do, and I'm sure this will be a great enabler because it's just very efficient when pumping damage. And you know what? Damage in Hearthstone, it turns out, is pretty darn good. Overlord Saurfang is a 4-star card. Scabbs Cutterbutter is a 4-star card. Swine, Tusk, Shank is a 3-star card. So there you go. That wraps it up for this here card review. We're running out of card reviews, guys. I think we probably only have like 2 to 3 left to go. I'll probably try to finish on an even number. So probably if this is 9, we probably got 3 to go because I don't want to end at 11. But man, we're moving through these cards lately. Some pretty crazy stuff here. Love the look and feel of Saurfang. Scabbs Cutterbutter is like the best name ever. So share your thoughts on these cards. What did you like? What did you hate? Are they going to be totally broken and OP? I'm curious to hear those takes and more in the comments down below. So thanks for watching, and until next time, game on.